Have you ever noticed someone slowly becoming more like you? They start using the same words, dressing in a similar style, adopting your habits, or even sharing opinions they never seemed interested in before. At first, it feels like a coincidence, but then it happens again and again. Suddenly, you begin to wonder, why are they copying me? Is it admiration, competition, or something much deeper hidden inside human psychology? The truth is that imitation is one of the oldest and most powerful social behaviors our brains have ever developed. Long before civilization existed, copying others was a survival strategy. Today, it still shapes friendships, workplaces, social media, and even our identities in ways most people never realize. By the end of this video, you'll understand why people imitate others, what it secretly reveals about their minds, and why being copied can sometimes be the greatest compliment or the biggest warning. The human brain is built to learn through observation. Before children can speak, they copy facial expressions. Before they understand language, they imitate sounds. Psychologists call this observational learning, and it allows us to absorb information without experiencing everything ourselves. Imagine having to discover every life lesson through trial and error. Humanity would never have progressed. Instead, our brains evolved to watch successful people and unconsciously repeat what they do. This process happens so naturally that most people don't even realize when they're doing it. One of the biggest reasons people copy you is because they admire qualities they wish they had themselves. Confidence, discipline, charisma, creativity, or emotional strength often attract imitation. When someone sees a trait they believe leads to success, their brain quietly labels it as valuable. Without even thinking about it, they begin adopting pieces of that person's behavior. This doesn't necessarily mean they're trying to steal an identity. Often, they're simply trying to become a better version of themselves by borrowing what appears to work. But admiration isn't the only explanation. Sometimes imitation comes from insecurity. People who struggle with self-confidence often don't fully know who they are. Instead of building their own identity, they borrow identities from those around them. They mirror clothing styles, hobbies, speech patterns, or even life goals because creating an authentic identity feels uncertain and risky. Copying provides psychological safety. If someone successful behaves a certain way, repeating that behavior feels like a shortcut toward acceptance or success. Social media has dramatically amplified this phenomenon. Every day, millions of people consume carefully curated images of lifestyles, fashion, opinions, fitness routines, and productivity habits. Algorithms reward trends, not originality. As a result, people often imitate what gains attention rather than what genuinely reflects their personalities. Viral challenges, identical room designs, similar editing styles, and repeated motivational quotes aren't just internet trends. They're examples of our brains constantly searching for social approval through imitation. In many ways, the digital world has turned copying into a survival strategy for visibility. Interestingly, neuroscience offers another explanation through something called mirror neurons. These specialized brain cells activate not only when we perform an action ourselves, but also when we watch someone else perform it. They help explain why yawning spreads through a room, why laughter becomes contagious, and why emotions can transfer between people. Mirror neurons make empathy possible, but they also encourage unconscious imitation. Sometimes people genuinely don't realize they're copying you because their brain is automatically synchronizing with yours during repeated interactions. Copying also plays an important role in building relationships. Research consistently shows that people naturally mirror those they like. During conversations, Friends unconsciously adopt similar body language, speaking speed, posture, facial expressions, and even breathing patterns. This subtle synchronization creates trust and emotional connection. Sales professionals, negotiators, and therapists often understand this principle because mirroring helps people feel understood. So if someone occasionally copies your gestures or expressions, it may simply be a sign that they feel comfortable around you. However, imitation becomes more complicated when competition enters the picture. Sometimes people copy others, not because they admire them, but because they see them as rivals. If your achievements attract attention, competitors may imitate your methods in hopes of reaching the same results faster. Instead of developing original strategies, they attempt to recreate yours. While this may seem flattering at first, competitive imitation often lacks authenticity because it's driven by comparison rather than personal growth. The copy may resemble the original, but it rarely carries the same passion behind it. History is filled with examples proving that imitation alone never creates greatness. Every groundbreaking artist, inventor, entrepreneur, or scientist began by learning from others. But eventually, each one developed a unique perspective. Copying is often the first stage of mastery, not the final destination. The greatest creators don't reject influence, they transform it. They absorb ideas, combine experiences, and produce something new. Originality isn't created from nothing. It's built by reshaping inspiration into something personal. Ironically, people who are copied often underestimate their own influence. They assume their routines, ideas, or communication style are ordinary because they experience them every day. Meanwhile, others quietly observe and imitate those same behaviors. Influence rarely announces itself. Sometimes the strongest impact you have on people is completely invisible until you notice someone reflecting parts of your personality back to you. There is also a darker side to imitation. Some individuals intentionally mimic others to manipulate trust. By adopting similar beliefs, interests, or behaviors, they create a false sense of familiarity. This psychological technique can make relationships progress unusually fast because similarity naturally lowers people's defenses. That's why it's important to distinguish between healthy admiration and calculated imitation. Genuine influence encourages mutual growth. Manipulative imitation often serves hidden personal goals. Perhaps the biggest lesson is this: if people are copying you, it says less about them than it does about the value they perceive in you. Humans naturally move toward what they believe increases their chances of belonging, succeeding, or feeling confident. Whether they imitate your mindset, your habits, your confidence, or your creativity, they're responding to qualities they find meaningful. The question isn't whether you'll influence people. You already do. The real question is what kind of influence you're leaving behind. At the end of the day, every person begins life by copying someone else. We imitate parents, teachers, friends, heroes, and strangers. But maturity begins when imitation transforms into individuality. The people who truly succeed aren't those who perfectly copy others. They're the ones who eventually discover their own voice. So if you notice people following your path, don't become obsessed with protecting every idea or comparing yourself to them. Continue growing, continue learning, and continue becoming more authentic. Copies may follow where you've been, but originality always stays one step ahead. And perhaps that's the greatest secret hidden behind why people copy you in the first place.